Mike Harmon stuck his laptop in his jump bag and tossed the ladder over one shoulder, standing up and stretching his back. He had been sitting in the coffee shop for nearly 3 hours, and he wasn't as young as he used to be. 15 years in the teams had left him with degenerative damage in half the major joints in his body, and a back that was compacted enough for a 50-year-old. As he wandered out of the shop, he glanced at his image in the plate glass window and grimaced. Brown hair, brown eyes, a regular face, neither handsome nor ugly, shoulders a bit wider than the norm, middle beginning to bulge a bit despite regular exercise. Not the most prepossessing figure, and certainly not, by any stretch of the imagination, a big man on campus. He'd thought that going back to college would be a cinch. With both his career and his marriage foundered on the rocks, time to go find some time in the sun. After years of 18-hour days, how hard could homework be? And then there were the lovely young co-eds. Long legs flashing by, skirts swirling and flirting, practically begging to be snapped up by a not particularly bad-looking former SEAL. Well, the homework wasn't actually that bad. Or it wouldn't be if it weren't for the classes he had to take. History. How bad could it be? Greeks and Romans and Persians and the Renaissance. Egyptians and feudal lords, and maybe memorizing a bunch of dead guys' names. Little did he know. That was old history. His current major course was an introduction to African pre-colonial history. As far as he'd been able to determine, his definition of what constituted history, and the definition used by the University of Georgia History Department, didn't come from the same dictionary. Sure, the old-time historians made stuff up. Livy read like something written by Tom Clancy, and Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars was written with political image in mind, with only brief touches on reality, something like a Democratic stump speech. But it had brief touches on reality, and it was at least written. Prior to the colonization period, Africa had no writing, and apparently, no problems worth discussing. His professor attributed every ill of Africa to the colonialism of the white man, ignoring the ongoing tribal wars that dated back thousands of years, not to mention the Arab slave traders that benefited from them. He'd had to see the first episode of the miniseries Roots, and had been loudly shushed when he started laughing in the first 15 minutes. Slave traders didn't get off their boats and go chase bush bunnies around. They bought them from Arabs, not fucking Islamics, Arabs. And the Arabs bought them from the tribes, who were constantly at war with each other. Sometimes it was all Mike could do to not stand up and punch the stupid bastard, especially when he got started on modern colonialism, by which he meant the war on terrorism. Mike wanted to scream, "Have you ever been in Mogadishu, you ignorant son of a bitch?" Hell, the conditions in Africa were better when the English and the Germans and even the French and the Belgians had been in charge. He'd read Conrad's Heart of Darkness a couple of times during downtime on the teams, and he'd been in the Congo, not that there was any trace of it going in or out. And Congo now was Heart of Darkness on fucking steroids. The only thing worse than having the Belgians in charge was having the fucking Gomers handling things. But of course, the problem with the Gomers wasn't that they were totally fucked up Gomers. Oh no. The problem with the Gomers was all the fault of colonialism and Western military adventures. Well, he'd been on one Western military adventure in Congo, and as far as he was concerned, the best thing to do was spray the whole damned place with anthrax, including the fucking guerrillas, shoot anyone that tried to leave, and start over. Attitudes like this, of course, didn't sit very well with his professors. It also didn't fit very well with the pretty little airheads that were being fed a steady diet of leftist propaganda bullshit. And no matter how he tried, he'd always end up opening his mouth and pointing out that it was leftist propaganda bullshit. That the problem with the Gomers was their fucking culture, which was totally fucked up, and had been before colonialization, and was going to stay that way until somebody beat some sense into their heads. At which point terms like militarist and baby killer, and with the real intellectuals, myrmidon, would start getting tossed around. What was funny was that some of the most leftist ball-busting bitches seemed to get off on his being a former team guy.